All right, everybody. How's everybody doing? Let's go ahead and do a nice audio and visual check. Make sure there's no
Check,
echo.
check.
And then you guys can see we
Cool.
have the amazing Coach Jay. He's right above me. He's joining me tonight during slow markets. Looks good so far. Sounds good. How about you, Coach Jay? How are you tonight?
Uh, I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Looks good. Sounds good. Hopefully, everybody made it through the day. Pretty wild day we had in the markets, but I'm doing good.
Yeah, that's an understatement for the crazy day that hopefully we'll be able to start talking about. I appreciate you joining me a little bit early. Been starting the slow markets 30 minutes early so that we could get through our regular analysis of our markets, then do our regular gold trade that we've been testing out, and then start talking more about strategy. And same thing goes for tonight. It's Wednesday night. I have you now with me, Coach Jay. So tonight I'm going to be talking about how I trade, but how it's also similar to yourself, Coach Jay. I know that you use some similar concepts, and I think it will be great to go back and forth to where I could explain some, you'll be able to elaborate on it maybe a little bit better than I can, because it's just one of those things where as a trader, sometimes it's just easier to do it rather than try and explain it. So hopefully,
I agree.
yeah, we can
I
have.
think some things are just second nature to you, where you almost forget where you learned it.
Mhm.
And it's always good to get back to basics and kind of understand why you do the things you do. So I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and get to it. Let's start with the NASDAQ first because we'll start with the NASDAQ, crude oil. Maybe we'll touch base on the Nikkei, the Japanese market. And then we'll finish it off with gold. And that should segue into our regular gold trade that we see right at the top of the hour, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then after that gold trade, we will jump into our strategies. So that being said, what a crazy day. It's a beautiful 3% plus down day. What was it? 3.5%? Is that what it finished at, Coach
Three,
Jay?
what do we close? 3.62% down.
3.62%. So, man, that was approaching 4%. But let's review it. I'm going to just go through the basics the same way that I've been talking about the way that I trade my strategy as well. And then if you see anything, go ahead and just jump in here, Coach Jay, and let me know what you see or if you have anything else to add to it.
Yep, I got you.
So on this daily, we could see that, let me go back. Kind of what we were talking about. I talked about it a little bit yesterday. I was talking about it this morning where we had that regular expected pullback. We seen this beautiful support that was looking that maybe it was becoming support again and was looking for some consolidation. We had earnings come out yesterday after the bell, and sure enough, we just broke through that, and it was a very decisive break. I was a little bit nervous, and we talked about this. I think it was last Friday where we was looking at it possibly breaking down. I think it was Friday, and seeing, is this going to break down? If it breaks down, it's going to get very ugly. Well, it didn't. We rallied. We consolidated a little bit the next day, and today we sold off really, really hard. We broke that. Obviously, with a little bit of hindsight, you can now see this could be a shoulder, a head, and a shoulder pattern. And like you break this very key market structure. As soon as we broke through that, it got ugly. It got ugly fast, and we went all the way down, and we peaked and seen the 100s. And as you can see, the next level that I have been looking at was right here in this zone, right around the lower 19,100s. And then, of course, maybe we'll see that key psychological level 19,000 come into play. And I think you even had levels a little bit lower. And I think I could see the one that we were talking about right around 18,000. I mean, this is a pretty big zone. 18,500 to 18,600 maybe. What's your thoughts on that, Coach Jay, from the daily aspect? I don't really see much. It's looking pretty dang heavy.
Yeah.
I am. I don't want to. Nothing's for certain because anything can happen. But 19,100 seems to be just a blink away.
I would agree with you, Dakota, on the higher time frame. I told you where my level was. I'll let the chat know as well. It was 18,500. And the reason why 18,500, we've been, we had this run up towards 21,000, but this is anchored VWAP from the beginning of the year, this yellow line here, and we can see how far extended we got from that VWAP. We're kind of getting a pullback towards it now. The reason I picked 18,500, I'm going to put on just the 50 moving average on the daily. I only look at these moving averages on a higher time frame. This candle right here, that was the daily candle from May 31st, is the last time we hit that 50 moving average on the daily. So I'm looking for the market to kind of retrace and maybe get back to somewhere, for whatever reason, these 50% retracements work all the time. That's right around 18,453. That's where I came up with that 18,500 number. Now,
Okay.
How do we day trade that? Different question, but on a higher time frame, that's kind of where I see this going.
Just lower. This market's
Yep.
just bearish. I mean, we could kind of look at it in any way that we want. From a technical aspect, it's just, I'm not finding a reason to say that this is going to be turning around anytime soon. It doesn't mean it won't, because if we switch to my charts, let's go. There we go. There was a couple similar examples. Okay, this is fair, and whenever we get into a situation, I love to just look back and say, have we been in any sort of a similar spot? The closest one I see was this sell-off back in May. It's no longer like the sell-off this week, or what we're seeing right now is much greater. It's a lot bigger than one that we seen back in April, and you can see we sold off. It was, 3, 4, I would dare say, 6 down days. 2 days we sold off, consolidation, and 3 more down days. And we kind of found some nice technical support, and we just immediately just bounced off that. And if we look further back, we have, of course, the craziness that happened the end of the year, last year in August, maybe some in September, and then near the end of October, before we started this huge rally. But we could be turning into a bearish market. There is still a little bit of an argument to be made that, like you said, we could see maybe a little bit more of a sell-off, and I don't know. It's just a tough market to trade in terms of, are we in a bearish market? Are we in a bullish market? Currently, we just have to trade what's in front of us. And right now, everything is pointing to further downside, a possibility for a run, like you said, down to the 18,400s, 18,500s. The first stop I at least see to where maybe we could start seeing some more consolidation or a bounce, possibly 19,100s. It doesn't mean that maybe we see some type of consolidation here or rally before we sell off. Maybe something that we've seen 2 days ago. I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be very hard to take longs. It's going to be very hard to hold on to any longs for longer than just some quick in and out trades, unless the market starts to change a little bit, but definitely not looking to be buying this market.
No, not for a long time.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you there. And if we look at any of the bounces, you guys know I look at volume for pretty much everything. Even some of these up days, right? The days that closed higher than we opened. This day closed higher than we opened. We had negative delta, right? So more selling in that day, and that's kind of what precedes this sell-off that we see, right? This is an up move on the daily, but there's no convinced buying in it, and you see that on every time frame, right? On a 3-minute time frame, a 5-minute, 15-minute, any of the counter trend moves that we've had, there's no buying in those moves, no initiative buying, right? So that no one's going to the market to buy. It looks like profit taking, and it makes sense. After we kind of made these all-time highs, we got FOMC next week. Tech has been, had an amazing rally. At some point, you need to realize those profits, and I think we're seeing those go in other directions. So yeah, short trades feel more comfortable right now until we get down to some of these levels that we were talking about.
Fair enough. Someone asked me if I comb my hair the other way. It's just whenever I have a guest on, for some reason my video changes it a little bit. I got a bad haircut. All right, the girl didn't get a tip. I'm probably not going to be going to that barber. But let
Chat
me see
is
if I
so
could.
observant. Chat is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
observant. You guys don't miss a thing.
No, they don't. They do not. Let me see if I can change that. Let's go. No, it's not gonna let me change it. Wait, let me try
Looks good this way, man.
one one more thing to. There we go. There we go. Flip. Bam. Nope, that's not it. Try one more. I want to make sure because that would be a pet peeve of mine. It's just a pet peeve of mine where we see something and if it's not uniform, then it will bug me and it will bug me all session until I adjust it. There we go. That's
My my question is, would you have noticed if it wasn't mentioned in the chat?
no. It's just one of those things where it's like it doesn't
Now
bother me
that you know
until
it's a
like
thing,
somebody points it out, and then it's like, okay, you know what? Now I have a little bit of OCD. Now let's get that
right?
changed. Okay, that's better. Now it's a lot more uniform to my other things in OBS. But yeah, let's go ahead and continue into this. Let's jump to a 60-minute chart, so a 1 hour chart, and I'm going to start off by where I ended it last night a little bit. When we opened up last night, we basically gapped down. And there's a lot of traders out there, and we had a brief conversation last night to do gaps always get filled? And I was like, you know what? Some can argue that they get filled more frequently than they don't. And sure enough, last night's gap did not get filled. You could see it. Let me switch to my charts, and then you could see it right here. Last night at the open, was it 5 p.m. Central, we gapped down and we never looked back. It was just sell, sell, sell. This is an hourly chart. And even throughout the New York session, there was one, I mean, this is basically London session where we've seen maybe one or two red or green hourly candles. And then all throughout the New York session, it was just red all day, sell off. There's not really much to be said. The only thing that I've started to notice, immediately we're finding resistance. We had a little bit of buyers step in during the end of power hour and immediately finding resistance right around 19,300 to where maybe if we break above 300, we could see a little bit of a bounce. What I want to look for, Coach Jay, is I want to find selling opportunities, but it's very hard to find selling opportunities when the market's not finding any pullback, any type of a bounce to sell, or anything that's not giving. It's very difficult for me myself to sell the market when we're not pulling back. You guys, don't you love the chat, man?
I'm sorry, I might have to close the chat, but Jonathan Batista said, my boy got a cut at Walmart once, never again, and that just got me. I'm sorry.
But
One of the first jobs I ever worked was actually at a Walmart, and there was a barbershop there, and that's all I have to say about that. But go ahead, keep going.
well, I mean, haircuts aren't cheap anymore. I used to have.
Right.
I grew up in a small town, and a family barber, I guess you could say, friend of the family's, and absolutely my favorite. He was an older guy. $15, and he would cut your hair, shave it, just amazing. And I used to go there like every other week just because it felt great. Like having a fresh cut feels amazing. But
Absolutely.
then I moved to a big city up further north, and like $30 for a haircut, and it's kind of a gamble on how good that they're going to cut your hair. So I'm in search of a good barber if anybody knows one. Obviously, the nice thing is hair will grow back. You guys could reset your accounts. My hair will go back. It's not lost forever. But yeah, thoughts on the NASDAQ, looking for areas and opportunities to sell it, Coach Jay. I'm on the hourly chart, so we're starting to zoom in.
Looking for places to sell it, to me, it has to be higher. First thing I would start to look at is a retracement of today's move, right? A lot of times when we see these bigger down moves, we get some of a retracement from it. A 50% retracement would take us around 19,500. That would be a pretty big bounce for a daily move, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. We have bigger news coming out later in the week. Actually, we have jobless claims tomorrow. We have PCE Friday, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a retracement of this move. But if I'm going to sell this, it has to be somewhere higher. I would go to probably a 30-minute chart and look at VWAP from today, which is at 19,440. Obviously, that's going to be lower as the market, it kind of chops around down here, but maybe somewhere around this anchored VWAP from yesterday's session could give us an opportunity to sell it. And that would be about a 150 point bounce and then looking to sell from there.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that happen. I mean, we're wanting to look for areas to sell it. I mean, today that was one where it's just close your eyes and sell situation. And switching back to my charts, if I zoom in, I have this area of support, like I was saying, resistance, 19,300. And if we start to zoom into a 5-minute, this is something that I am watching. I'm watching this is resistance. This is a technical. We've had a lot of volatility. We sold off. We had that nice bounce during power hour. We got to basically 19,300. Sold off during, after hours, after the market closed. We got up there, sold off, right before we came on air. We got to 19,300 and we're seeing a little bit of a sell-off. So maybe what we could consider, and this is something I am looking at going into tonight, is if we get a little bit of a rally and if we break above 300, maybe we could get to 360. And then finding areas of opportunity to short or look for some short opportunities around these 360s to 375s. And then all of the areas that we consolidated today as we were going down can now be areas that I look for shorts, at least zones that I'm going to be looking to maybe get into a short position in preparing for another move to the downside. But no longs. I haven't really been saying any longs. I mean, nothing that I'm reading on these charts is yelling along. Just to play devil's advocate, if there is anything to say there could be a move to the upside, it would be a break of this resistant zone. Like I said, well, if I'm waiting for the market to go up, and if we do break these 19,300s, and I think we could go to 19,360s, maybe 370s. If we break out, then yeah, you know what? There's an argument to be made that we could get into a long and see if we could find some type of a bounce. But definitely not a trade that I want to be holding for very long. But from a technical standpoint, this chart, and as you can see from this technical pattern, can be, as somebody in this says, screaming to the long side, looking for some type of a breakout and a bounce. But it's not something I would be comfortable holding overnight, given the volatility and giving the technical analysis from those higher time frames. But we will see. I'm not brave enough to get into a long right here. I think that's the long story short on my end.
And I could see why someone's saying this chart is screaming long, just because of how far we've come down. But the higher time frame trend is to the downside, right? So what I will say is this chart is not screaming short either, right? So I could see that, right? I don't want to get short here because this is kind of short in the hole. Could we just continue to sell off? Definitely. But I would feel a lot more comfortable with a short somewhere higher than this. So like you just said, there's room to the upside if we need to short it higher. So yeah,
and we're starting
manage
to
your risk either way.
A little bit of a rally. We'll see. Anyway, let's move on to crude oil. I know you're a crude oil trader yourself. Do you want to start this one off, Coach Jay? I'll switch it to your charts.
Yeah. So I am on a 30-minute. All my drawings went away. But crude is here. Let's put this back on here. Let's mark out this level over here. I think this was the demand level we took a long from in the house account. Yeah, somewhere near there.
Yeah, that house account trade was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was a great trade. Yeah, it was this one. This just looks like the lows of this range, right? This demand area looks like the lows of this range. I would be looking to buy crude. And again, the higher time frame trend right now is to the downside, but I don't want to short at this demand area. I would be looking for maybe along somewhere around 77. That gives me a better area to limit risk, where I think we could actually pull back down to 77. That was around the lows of today. So a pull back down there to then long back up towards these 78s. I do see some of this move up here above 78, 78.60 getting filled. So I would be looking to buy crude a little bit lower than where we are right now.
Looking for some longs. Yeah, that low, that weekly kickoff low of Hoag, and like Hoag called that trade out so perfectly. I walked over, changed over to it, and Man, I was just so excited. I was ecstatic that MP was able to get into that type of a position. And yeah, switching back to my charts, we still have on the daily, because daily, then I zoom into the hourly. We still have a lot of pressure in terms of this daily candlestick pattern that I've been watching, of where we've been kind of, what do we call it? Coiling, consolidating on the daily from a much longer time frame, right? Where we came down, we see these lows, we rallied back up to 84, and we're coming back down to these lows again. And so, it's a big zone. Like I say, everything's a zone, nothing's exact, nothing's perfect. We could see a nice bounce back up to the higher range, maybe a break of 80 and back up to the higher side of this, pattern, or we make a run back down lower. Like I said, my drawing is never perfect. My drawings are never perfect. It's never exact. And you could always debate whether it's here or here. But the idea is we're starting to get down to these lows. And so it's a lot less bearish. And now there could be areas, just like today, we've seen a beautiful consolidation pattern. We've seen an indecisive candle here in crude oil. And so very much, we could see another bounce off this zone, as we've seen before whenever we've, came back down towards these $77 a barrel. There's been a lot of support there throughout, May, February. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a nice rally at the end of this week, I dare say.
Do you remember what that weekly kickoff level was? Was it 77 even?
I can't remember what that weekly kickoff level was. I know Hoag was saying it was like 76.50s is where we was getting in long.
76.50.
Let me look. Let me see.
You're right. 76.50.
Yeah, 76.50. 76.50. That was such a beautiful trade. It really was. It was pretty intense, though. It was intense. Whenever you're buying like that, without so much market structure, it feels really intense. But you could get a great risk reward. And sure enough, that's what played out on the house account when we had a lot of support. And now I'm on the hourly chart. And as I start to zoom out, you guys could kind of see what I was looking at. And I'm going to show a little bit of what I was referring to is, back on May 8th, and throughout May, every single time we got down to this zone, this was a key level of support. And we would bounce and would rally all the way up to even the 79s. And sure enough, we bounced and we had a beautiful rally off this, but we only got to the 78s. So if we get back down into this zone, I would still feel relatively confident for looking for longs to rally right back up to 78s, maybe 79s on that longer side, especially since we started to consolidate on the daily and we started to find a lot more buyers. But we cannot deny that the current trend, we have lower lows and lower highs. But on the smaller end, and we start to zoom in, we can make an argument. Of course, you can make an argument for every one of these little pullbacks that we are having, higher lows and higher highs. There's a lot more volatile in this move today. So we'll see. To me, it would be hands off. Wait to see if we push back down towards, 76.50s or if we continue to consolidate.
I would agree with everything you just said.
Okay.
Someone asked, what do you mean by a weekly kickoff level? I just put in the chat the link to the Topstep daily levels. Our coaches are putting levels in there. The weekly kickoff is something that Hoag puts on for every market. So definitely take a look at those, whether you trade them or not. The interesting levels to put on your charts. That's where that crude oil trade came from. So definitely take a look at those.
Yeah, let's go through that. Anyway, let's hurry and jump to gold because it's coming up on 8 p.m. Central, and we got a gold trade to be looking at. So real quick, on the hourly chart, we had that huge sell-off in the middle of pretty much July 18th and 19th. We've had some consolidation. We got that nice little rally. It went up to, it blew through those 2420s. It hit 2431. it was one of our targets, and I think that was a level that you were even pointing out, Coach Jay, is this 31, and we immediately sold right back down to these lows. And for the past, I would say 2-3 hours, we've been consolidating here for a little bit, and we've showing that some buyers are starting to step in, in these mid 90s. And then if we zoom into a 5-minute chart, we're going to be looking for a trade coming up on hopefully a nice spike in volatility at this 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So on the 5-minute chart, we can see that the lows is around, 2394, and we have that pivot high right around, 2400s, just a little bit above 2400s. Do you have a bias going into this, Coach Jay?
Again, it looks like crude oil looks like lows of the range. We'd be leaning.
Gold. Not crude
No,
oil.
yeah, gold looks like crude oil, right?
Oh,
Gold
okay,
looks like crude oil, where it's at the lows of this higher time frame range. I have a level at 2384. If we got down there, I would be buying it there. Right now, we're near these lows, and again, like you said, it's a zone. That would be a pretty big zone, right? Where that's on a one lot, that's about a $1,200 risk. So maybe somewhere in between where we are right now and the bottom of that zone, maybe 2390s look like a decent buy. That 2431 level, that was on the daily levels today.
Was it really?
It was one I put on there. Sometimes you got to pay attention to your own analysis.
Trust me, man. If you only knew how many times I wish I would have you know what? I just like today, I will argue today was one of those days where we started to break down. I said, you know what? We could see 19,100s. That's a possibility. And then I was an idiot. Okay, we sold off. I'm waiting for a pullback to sell. We wasn't getting that pullback. I could even go back through and say I was a little bit impatient. Yeah, okay, while I'm waiting for a pullback, let's look for some long scalps. And I can even catch any type of just quick trade. It was just a rough day for me. Even though I said that as soon as we broke that level in NASDAQ, we could see a sell-off. And we did, and it got ugly. So I just sometimes we do just need to just not overthink it, listen to ourselves, and just keep it simple. But looking at gold, we're coming up right at that 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to zoom into a 1-minute chart, and let's take a look. Let's see if we could get a nice breakout on gold. I'm actually in my Topstep live account, so you guys can see up here on the top left. I'm going to change it to my charts.
Yeah, there you go. Charts.
Yeah, my Topstep live account, I got that activated. That's what I took my loss today on. Waiting for my live account, waiting for it, got it, and then took the loss. So let's see what gold will do for us. I'm going to say I'm neutral gold going into this trade to just see if we can get a break of one direction or the other. I personally would, and just looking at this chart, would be inclined to the long side. I would like to see gold break to the long side, see if we could break above this 2400 again, like we were saying on the hourly chart. But let's see. It's right at the top of the hour. I'm not going to place a trade unless I'm very confident in it, in the trade. Feel free to add in whatever you want. And while I'm doing that, I forgot to send that Topstep risk disclosure in the YouTube chat, so everyone knows this is not a signals class. It's educational purpose only.
Everyone knew that already, but yes, read that risk disclosure for sure.
Yeah, you think they do. You'd be surprised.
Right? No one's here to copy any trades, right, guys? Just all for educational purposes. Seriously, take your own trades. Even if you're getting information from anyone, ultimately you're the one that clicks the button. So
yes. Yeah, and someone says everyone takes my trades anyway. Sometimes it's just not a good idea.
Right.
So far, nothing. You've been with you were with me at the very beginning when we started to look at this gold trade, and we've hit a couple amazing trades in gold, and lately it's been not so great.
Go
ahead.
I've been watching Deanna's London session, usually not live because it's pretty early, but copper has been a great trade overnight for some reason. Really nice trends in copper when gold has kind of been consolidating. We're seeing some movement to the downside right now. But that copper trade usually doesn't happen until the London session.
Interesting. I've never looked at copper in terms of a trading aspect. We're starting to break down. So last pivot, like 23.92. I mean, that could have been this trade. Is just placing a breakdown. I didn't see any very solid support. But yeah, one could say getting in short at 23.95.6 on the break of this previous pivot it made before there. And if we do start to pick up volatility and break below these 92s, 92.8, we could get a nice sell-off down to 89. I could see some targets down here. As I start to zoom out, we have 2390, or the bottom of 2390, basic 90, 89, and then 86. And if we get below this support, very much like the NASDAQ, if we get below the support, it could get ugly as well. So let's watch this. Let me know if you see anything, because you watch the tape, right, Coach Jay? I'll switch it to your chart.
Yep. Yeah, I am looking at it right now. We are seeing selling coming in here. You guys can see the time and sales on the side of my chart. Don't worry about the numbers. Just look at the colors, green or red. There's more red on this time and sales right now. And we're seeing selling coming into here. It looks good, but again, can we break through this open? This range that I have marked out here is the first 30-minute range. And we really haven't done anything but chop inside this range so far. So it's a decent trade here, right? This is still a 2-point trade from this VWAP here, a 2-point move. But no volume, from a volume perspective, nothing to really say take a trade yet.
Yeah, same here. And this is my live account, and I want to feel really confident in taking a trade. Something that's clear, right? I've been playing around with my demo. I don't want to say playing, but testing this out in a combine and a simulated account. And I want to start taking this trade a little bit more serious, because now I've traded this for basically 2 months. Maybe it's even longer than 2 months. I'm going to see how it performs in a live account, because there is a difference between a simulated environment and a live account. We'll see how it performs in a live. I don't think it's going to be much different, maybe a tick depending on getting in at the bid and the ask. But overall, I'm pretty confident on how the statistics will work out. If anything, if this trade continues to have that volatility spike at 8 p.m. Central.
We did see some selling, and that selling kind of retraced right away.
Yeah, yesterday we kind of did the same thing where we sold off, had a nice little whipsaw to the downside, and then we started to rally. That could be something to it, where if we had a run of liquidity here on gold to the downside, and if we reverse and rally back up to 2400, that could be in play. 2400 could be in play if we continue to hold here.
2400, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's such a psychological number. I've been talking about it. It seems like every single night we've been around 2400.
Yeah, those major psych numbers, you're going to see a lot of consolidation, trading around those levels for 3-4 days sometimes before the market decides a direction.
Yeah. We'll watch it. Other than that, how have you been trading, Coach Jay? I know we talk a lot outside of Topstep and just through Discord, but we've never really got to talk about how you have been trading.
Yeah, so my Topstep accounts, today was a struggle. Same analysis that you had to the short side, but I found myself buying it. So what I've been doing is, trying to trade with futures in the morning session. Some sessions are going well, some not so well, kind of back and forth. But what I've been doing is realizing, hey, am I in the pocket or am I not? And then taking a break. And then what I do is go trade a couple options on my personal accounts, usually trading some pretty safe stuff, just some credit spreads, just to kind of get a win. Because I feel like I'm reading the market well and just not executing so well, which kind of sucks because we're having these pretty big days, right? Which is what we prepare for. But you prepare for it and then you got to execute on what you prepared for. So yeah, it's been tough. It's not something I don't think I can't get through. These are kind of just what happens with traders. Sometimes you go through a little bit of a slump, but I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. So and I'm sure there's a lot of traders here in the chat. Most traders here in the chat is probably feeling the same, right? When we have all this volatility that's going on, there's going to be, traders that are doing really, really well, and then traders that are struggling and taking losses. And we were just talking about it, Coach Jay, right before we came on screen. Like, this is what we're wanting to see. Yes, of course, myself included, trying and trading. And we start talking about the leaderboard. It's so nice to see traders doing so well. It really is. Some traders that when we first got here at Topstep, like last year, who were just starting out, messaging you and saying, I just got a payout. I received my first payout, or I just got to a live account. Seeing that it feels so much better than anything else that I could explain. And not just getting payouts, getting consistent, and even starting to see them, make big days, like trade bigger, having big P&Ls, and going up that leaderboard. What's your thoughts on that?
It's great to see, right? I am in a position as a coach here, so I want to see everyone do well in the markets. But it's great to see traders, putting up huge numbers. But for me, it's really nice when a trader says, "Hey, I saw the level that you posted, and I see the market the same way, and it helps me feel confident taking a trade." Right? That's really why I enjoy doing this, because this is such a difficult thing to do. And then helping people kind of figure out their own journey. Gabe today passing that combine after having to trade live in front of everybody. That was awesome. So regardless of how my trading is going right now, I'll figure that out. I feel like a lot of my attention right now too is with coaching, right? With providing levels, providing coaching in Discord, the VIP program and things like that. I'll get back to a time where I can focus solely on my trading, and we'll be okay from there. Look at this gold trade, by the way.
Yeah, I see. I'm watching it while you're talking. It's just another one. That's the story of my day. Is I've just been watching trades go without me. But to your point, I love that. Of course, I got to the number one on the leaderboard, stayed there for a little bit, and now we're starting to see traders do so much better than myself. So I've just had to take this moment to give those traders who deserve that credit. And I told this to Mick, not this past Friday, but the Friday before that, is I love to see it. I'm starting to see names. I'm starting to see names of traders who are showing up more frequently. There's one name that I've seen a few times on, I don't have social media, but I see it through Discord. People are mentioning these names. I think one of them, I'm horrible at pronunciation. I'm horrible at saying the names. But I think Lanto, is that one of them? I know.
Yeah, that's what I've seen on social media too.
And he's done absolutely amazing. I seen that somebody shared a post where he was just putting up those numbers, and traders that are getting up there and getting on the leaderboard and trading so much better than what I would have ever imagined. I love seeing that. And I just will always root for the best. And I don't want to knock on wood or anything, and because it happened to myself, I see it happen all the time, is focus on the process, not the P&L. And I just want to see traders get up there, stay up there, and take consistent payouts.
100%. Yeah. Raphael also, who's been on the top of that leaderboard, and I think took a 50 grand payout today. Amazing stuff. Props to you, Dakota, also for, kind of just showing what is possible. And obviously, there's money to be made in trading, but doing it with Topstep, when that leaderboard was being posted, just kind of showing traders hey, this is possible. This is how you can go about it. And we know we have traders, a ton of experience from a bunch of different places. And it's kind of good to see the community as a whole, taking payouts. I think we were at 2.5 million in payouts last week or something like that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's amazing. It's absolutely crazy. And I always will tell this, and I say it all the time. I am absolutely not the best trader. I loved and I enjoyed getting up on the leaderboard. I hope I get up there again. I'm trying. Of course, I'm trading here at these Topstep accounts, but there's so many great traders out there that is in the spotlight, that's at Topstep, that's not at Topstep, that you see, that you don't see, that's on social media, that doesn't have social media, and it's really bringing out the best of the best, and that's what I love here at Topstep, and that's what I'm excited to see. Yeah, gold's sitting here rallying up to 2,400.
And we're sitting here yapping, right?
And we're sitting here yapping about this. I mean, I missed the trade. I'm not going to chase it.
Yeah, same.
Like I said, this is my live account, and if I was in a demo, yeah, sure, I probably would have just entered just to see what would happen. But this is my live account. I'm going to be taking a trade that I intend to win and feel confident that fits my strategy to a T.
100%.
But other than that, I think it feels good to have a little bit more time. Usually we're trying to crunch everything within an hour, but now we have that flexibility to have that extra time. So let's get to a couple questions, and then we'll jump into the strategy. I've been talking about strategy all week. This Coach Jay, how do I trade the markets? How do I trade it during slow markets? How do I trade it during the New York session? Last night was fun. I was able to, and fun in terms of, I felt like I was able to explain how I trail my trades on the 100 tick chart, and I've really started to enjoy this. So tonight I decided that we could answer some questions, and then we can go about how I trade using a technique that I know you're familiar with, and I think that you can provide some really great insights on.
Yep, absolutely. So any questions we have in the chat, and then we'll get to that. It's a great topic, Dakota. It comes up literally every day in trading. So.
Yeah, it does. So here's a couple questions. Maybe you could answer them, Coach Jay. Should the NASDAQ and gold trade inversely? I don't really look at inverted and correlation. What's your thoughts on that one?
There's that link, and there goes Andre in the chat. Andre, do you have that link? Perfect timing. I think he heard it.
He's relaxing, Coach Jay. He just pops up.
That correlation link. He has a blue name. He's here working. But no, I don't pay attention to that correlation. You would think that gold is like that safe haven asset. So if you're selling off the equities, that money would go into gold. But I don't pay attention to that correlation too much either.
Fair enough. I agree. That's how I am. I trade them independently. It doesn't mean that they aren't. I'm sure there's something to that, but I personally don't. Too much for me and too much going on for me to focus on so many things. Do we think the bull run is over? Ooh, that's a good one, Coach Jay. Do you think that the bull run is over? And take that question as however you want to take it.
Not financial advice. I do not think the bull run is over. I think this is a correction in a bull run. I don't think you can officially deem it over until we at least get to this 200 moving average on the daily. And I'm assuming whoever asked that question is asking about the NASDAQ. 200 moving average on the daily. It's not something that we visit often. Last time we even tested it was October 2023. And you can kind of see what happened, right? We bounced right off of it and continued up. What time frame are we talking about? Because in the next 2 weeks to a month, do I think we see more downside? 100%, right? Whenever we fill this move here down to 18,400 is what I'm looking for. I would consider that, the end of the retracement, and then we continue back up.
Fair. I will agree with you. It's hard to say a bull run's over in such a short period of time. And I'm going to pull up the NASDAQ chart on my own because, just like you did, on the daily chart. And if we zoom all the way out back to October, October was kind of the start of this bull run, right? And we've had pretty decent pullbacks. Of course, this one took a lot longer. However, the one starting in July 2023 compared to this one, I mean, this one's more violent. And if we just look at the daily, maybe we could even look at the weekly chart, but I would say I would have to say no. I just have to say no, but it's starting to look a little bit more ugly because it's so violent, so far, so fast. It's hard to give an answer right now, but technically, no, it's not over.
Yep.
Maybe there is something to it. I would say if we end up continuing to sell off, and if this does happen to be the high of 2024, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, this would not surprise me if this was the end of the bull run and this was the high of 2024. I wouldn't be surprised. However,
right. I agree.
As of right now, I'm going to say no.
If you can bring up my charts just one more time, just mind the white screen. But Andre did share that link. I also will put it in the chat again if you didn't catch that. But this market correlations, if anyone is interested, you can change the days. So this is on 30 days right now. Just found gold and the NASDAQ. The value here is 27 positive. So there's somewhat of a correlation. But it's not a high value, right? You see some of these higher values on this chart here. There looks like more of a correlation between the price of gold and the ES or the Dow. So if you're interested in those type of questions, make sure you bookmark that link. And hey, there goes Lento in the chat. I think that was the big trader that we had. What's going on, Lento? Great trading.
Yeah,
I think so.
I had a conversation with him before hopping on here and was giving him credit where credit was due, which is 100%. Everybody should do that, right? Where what I absolutely hate is when people on social media, when all they do is talk negative or talk bad, and we're really all in this together, to be honest. The only one that I might ever talk bad is Goldman Sachs interns or someone who just doesn't work. I can't say it doesn't work as hard as we do or started from the bottom, but yeah, everybody who trades good, everybody here at Topstep or just in this industry together deserves the credit when they start trading really well and deserves that.
Absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. I don't want to waste too much time. We still have 40 minutes, but I think this is going to be a good 40 minutes going forward. Let's go through this. So tonight, I want to talk about, feel free, Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night. I went over the strategies. I've decided to start my slow markets from 7:30 Central Standard Time. An extra 30 minutes to give us more time to go over this. I feel it's great. I no longer feel rushed. I'm able to answer questions. I'm able to go through the rapid fire. And now we're going to be able to take the time without feeling rushed to go over more in-depth strategies and how I trade. And then, of course, you can add to this because it's very, very similar. So I've heard this being called a few things, and I'm sure you have too. I'm going to go ahead and switch to my chart, and I'm going to go to an hourly chart. And I'm sure everybody who has been on my slow markets, yourself included, Jay, has talked about these average true moves, these like average, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, let's talk about it. I'm going to give two examples. As you can see on my chart, it's an hourly. I'm going to give an example of when we were rallying to the north side back at the beginning of July. So what I love to do is I love to start at the bottom and measure the entire move. We call this measured move. It's really up, and it can be more discretionary, right? You could measure from this. As I'm going to zoom in. This is an hourly chart from here or here. So what I love to do is I just pull up a chart, I zoom all the way out, and I measure from bottom to top on these averaged moves. So go through, and I just love to take good ones that start from either a pullback or a nice consolidation, and I love to measure them. And this is what I get when I'm looking for an expected move, right? Like, hey, we're consolidating, but then we're start to move and start to rally. This is about how much we move. And I go through and I measure this. So here we go. I went through and I measured it. You don't have to measure them all. I usually measure 3 or 4 of them. And it's I don't want to say it's accurate, but it's accurate enough for me to get an expected move, right? Where we can measure on average when the NASDAQ does rally during this period of time, it has moved this amount. So for example, if I was to measure this, I'm going to go ahead and do some very rough math. It moves about 200 points when we do have a breakout. And this is a decent gauge for when I'm measuring the moves in the current market condition. So that is what I was looking at. I've went through it a couple times when we was on this rally or on this bull trend. We was hitting all-time highs every single day, it felt like, and continuing to push all-time highs. So this gives me a realistic expectations whenever we are in a trending market, when we could expect a pullback. How far does this market have left to go? And it just gives me a realistic expectation. Of course, the market could go further and it could go shorter, but it could give me a realistic expectation. So that was for the long side. And I want to go ahead and do that for what the market is currently doing. And that has been in a massive sell-off. And you guys could see very clearly the famous words of, we're going up like a staircase, and we're going down like an elevator. So sure enough, if we start to zoom out and I want to measure these bigger moves, when we have these big, massive sell-offs, we can kind of eyeball and see, sure enough, like it's, and I bet you, what is this going to be like today's? I mean, today's might be a little bit more, but sure. I mean, there is something to this. I use this not all the time, but sometimes I do like to just get an idea of when the market does move in this direction or when this trend continues, about how far can we expect. This is something that, of course, after I taken the loss today, I should have been like, you know what, we're starting to sell off. We don't put this up there. And in the morning, I said, you know what? Okay, we have a lot more room to the downside if we get this type of an expected move. Now, it's always hard to say, is it going to be starting during the London session? Is it going to be starting, when does this actually start? And then when it does start, understanding when that expected move happens. And we've already seen that expected move. So I do think that the market could see that 19,100s, maybe what you were saying, the 18,004 to 500s. But it's fair enough, I think, at this point in the NASDAQ to say, based off of this, we could see consolidation. We could see maybe not as big of a move, right? Because, even though I was measuring these big sell-offs, there was also, smaller sell-offs in comparison, right? And then you could go through, and it doesn't really matter the time frame. We could also zoom into a 5-minute chart or a 15-minute or 30-minute. I love doing it. What is your opinion on that? I'm going to switch to your charts, and I really want to see what your overall thought process is on that.
Yeah. So I think kind of what we're talking about, these measured moves, it's important to know how the market goes about conducting its business, right? Whether it's a consolidation or a trend, on average, how are these moves going to work? Everyone's talking about gold is selling off. But I think for me, it starts on a daily time frame. Some of the levels that I put on that Topstep daily level sheet are going to come from a daily ATR, right? That's probably the only version of the ATR that I use. Everything else is kind of just measuring to see how the market is moving, right? So daily ATR right now, for example, on gold is 35 points, right? So first measure I'm going to do is from this low, which is about to get lower, up to this high. And that's to say, if the range doesn't extend any further to the downside, that's an average move, right? An average daily move. And then I would do the same thing from the downside. If this range doesn't extend any further than this high right now, 2,400, I'm going to measure 35 points to the downside. And that is potential for that, it's a potential target to the downside if we get an average daily move. And then from there, I'm going to go to a shorter time frame and see exactly how we're getting down there. These bounces, right? This bounce here is an 8-point bounce on a 30-minute chart, right? From this low up to this high before we continued lower is 8 points. So if the market is going to continue in that trend, and I'm looking to get in, and this I think is especially important for trend days where you find it hard to get in. Figure out what these average moves are on whatever time frame that you trade. If we were trading a 30-minute and I'm looking at gold here, let's say I think gold has another 20 points to the downside to get to that average daily range target, 2365. But I also don't want to shorten the hole, right? Because this is hoping that this move continues. I can use these average measures. When the market stops selling off and we get this counter trend move around about 8 points, let's say this was the low, around about 8 points, will put us right back in this demand area, and it's just going to keep going. But around about 8 points would put us right at this low. Now that's an area for me to start looking for a potential short. To the same, argument, if I'm looking for a buy in gold, I want to measure these moves, and that's approximately what I could assume for a trade before I think trade management, right? The market has showed us that this counter trend move is 8 points. If I buy gold here and say I want to get all the way back up to the high of the daily range, 30 points away, I might be setting unrealistic expectations for what the market has shown me. You're on mute, Dakota. $5. You can send it right to me. Jack's on vacation.
Slow markets.
Say it again.
There's no $5 in slow markets. So as long as that doesn't get back to Jack. Usually it's just me here, Coach Jay. I never. Nobody knows when I'm muted when it's just me by myself.
All good.
But yeah, let's maybe try and walk through that on gold right now.
Yep.
I'm going to pull up my charts on the hourly, and let's think through that. On the hourly on gold, let's see if we could come up with some type of expected move when we do start to sell off. Would it be interesting to see if we could see gold down to 2353, maybe even 2360s?
Yep.
And just going off of, we had that big sell off on the 18th. We've sold off from basically 2470 all the way down to 2400, $71 dollars. This expected move puts us really at an interesting spot. There's a lot of support back at the beginning of the July in gold, right around 2360. Now remember, it's a zone plus or minus. So yeah, I think if we do break down, and if we do break on the July 22nd's low, maybe we can see 2360 plus or minus a couple dollars come into play. So just based off of that expected move.
Totally with you on that, Dakota. And to me, looking at the markets, it's all about the puzzle, trying to figure out the puzzle. What is it showing me for the day? That 2360 that you just looked at, right, where you see a demand area down there, some support, that lines up with where we just talked about that daily ATR move being, right? Yeah. Also, that daily ATR measure was if we didn't extend the range higher. Where's the high of that range right now? 2400 major psych level, where we didn't see any buying come in. To me, that's adding to the probability of the short side of this move. Now, does that change the outcome of a trade? If I take a short here, does that guarantee a winner? Absolutely not. But we're trying to measure what's possible here. And that puzzle, if I put that puzzle together, it looks like a good case to take a short. What matters for us as day traders is where that short happens, and I think that's where we were talking about the countermeasure.
Yeah, and like I said, this isn't a trade that I'm trading right now. This is
Correct.
Happens to be a really great live example, as gold is starting to sell off, of how I myself look at technical analysis, and I believe you, Coach Jay, it's also another good tool. It's not your primary tool, but it's just another tool that helps you look at this type of technical market and understand the markets in such a way that could give you a realistic expectations. Because of course you could always go through and say, there's some resistance here. Maybe this is a shoulder, head, and shoulder, and maybe we start to break down. And there's so many things that you could look at. But understanding from just the tool that we are talking about is, when we did get a sell-off, when we did get an expansion move to the downside on gold, like we've seen on this, we could very realistically come and see, 2360s. And that's saying that's a realistic expectation. So if you happen to get in, let's just say if I happen to get into a short at our 8 p.m. breakout trade, and we happen to get in short right around 23.95, and I have a stop loss in, I would be perfectly fine holding one trade and putting a take profit at 23.61, and then I'd go to bed and just let a runner go and see if we can tag it. I mean, it's not going to happen all the time, but it is a measured move that is a realistic expectation. So now that being said, on the flip side, if we're looking for an area to buy gold, maybe we could wait and see if gold could get down to this area, and then this could be a zone where we would look to buy rather than sell and look for take profit in that zone. We could wait and see if this could be a good target where we could be looking to buy this market. I tend to do that a lot more in terms of looking for areas to get into the market rather than areas to get out. So for this example, this would be one of them, where if gold starts to sell off and we do get into this zone, then I have those two factors lining up. I have this as a nice support zone, and then I have it as an expected move to the downside based off of the previous move. And sometimes the first move can be the most volatile, and then the second move can be a little bit shorter. And I see that. It's kind of common. It doesn't always have to happen that way, but I've seen that a few times. So yeah, I think if gold gets down to 2360s, I could be one to look for some type of a long to see if we get some type of a bounce back up, maybe to like 2376. So that is the way I love to trade using this. And not just in gold, we're using gold as an example. NASDAQ, crude oil, any market that I'm trading, I love to use this. Each market is different. Each market has different volatility and it moves its own way, but this is simply measuring how that market's moving.
Yep, 100% agree with you.
Your charts.
Another example on the NASDAQ today. Let's look at the NASDAQ, right? Because this is also going to change depending on the time frame that you're using and the day type, right? Let's say today the trend in the NASDAQ was lower. Here's the New York session open here. Let's just measure out these counter trend moves, right? We have a 120 point move to the downside and a counter trend 40 points. It's a 70 points. But if we use this counter trend measure, that can be the measurement that we use for a potential short entry, right? Or if you're buying this is where you're thinking about taking profits, right? And it just showed you in this counter trend move, right? We made a low here. The market made a high, a lower high here. This here is a 39 point move. On the next one, we get a 36 point move. If I bought it here, I need to start thinking position management because the last time we had a counter trend move, 37 points, 39 points, whatever it was. Or this bounce is giving me an opportunity to get in short. What was this one? We made this low, this consolidation here. We'll measure to this high, around 40 points. It's an average, right? It's an average move. It gave me either I'm taking profits around 40, or if I get a 40 point bounce, I'm looking for a sell. Here's another one. Another downward move. The counter trend move, 33 points. All about the same measurements. So I really love looking at the markets that way. Andre will call it out sometimes on fast markets, like, hey, what is that counter trend move, right? What's the average of it? So we can look for a potential trade, especially on a day like today where it's really hard to get in this market. Do we know that the market's going to continue selling off after that counter trend move? No. But it's better than seeing the market like this and saying, oh, I missed the sell up here. I just need to sell it in the hole. Right. I'm going to sell it here where you can get the direction right. But how many of us trading with minis in the NASDAQ are okay with a 750 point trade in the opposite direction? And that's with a one lot, right? A couple ways you can manage that. Trading micros. That's a one lot $750 drawdown before the trade goes in your direction if you sold in the hole. What we're trying to say is, measure some of these counter trend moves, and identify how the market is moving before you get in.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's it's so important. I mean, it's a tool, right? And it's not an end all be all. We have so many different tools of where to trade, but there is a couple questions, and this is a really good question, and I think this is just as important, is, for example, I'm going to switch back over to gold again. And since we were talking about this expected move, I mean, I've talked about this a couple times this week, but maybe you could shed some light of maybe the way you see this as well. But let's say we are looking for a long, and we do get that, say, expected move down to the 2360. Once it gets to this zone, what would trigger us into a trade? And very much, there's a lot of ways that once we use this tool and then the market gives us some setup, then the question is, okay, great. Now, how do we get into this trade? Where do we put our stop loss? Those are just as important to understand, because you could have gold come down here and then turn around and start to rally, and then you either take a loss or you miss that trade because either poor trade management, bad execution. We always have, you could pick the direction correct, but you could have bad timing, or you could have amazing timing but just wrong direction. For me personally, if you've watched pretty much any of the other classes this week, technical analysis, like a 3-bar reversal, maybe we come down to this zone and we start to consolidate, and then we break out, we make either higher lows, I mean, there's so many different technical patterns that I like to watch. And as soon as I start to see one, then that will start to be tempting me to be triggered into a long. What about you, Jay?
For me, once we get down to a technical area, a demand, a support, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to look at the volume. I'm going to look at how the market is trading around those levels. Is it heavy selling? And are those selling? Because we had to get selling to get down there. Are those sellers still looking for more? Are they selling and getting lower prices, or is that selling getting absorbed? And then does that turn into buying eventually, where these sellers are not getting what they want, and then going from there? But yeah, to me, it's never just like a blind buy it or sell it. You have to see something that says, I agree with this trade.
Yeah. So what would be your exact trigger point? Because there's so many technical patterns. I'll go over a few more examples, but do you have like an exact technical point that would trigger you into a long?
Yep. Let's get an example here. Here is gold here. Let's say we were looking for this short in gold, right? We had, where was this? No, shorter time frame chart, 3-minute chart. All right. So we had this selling here, right? There's negative, again, I read volume all the time. There's negative delta in this candle, which told me sellers are in control. We bounced up with no real buying. This is positive 5 delta in this candle, positive 70, and a negative 2 at these highs. When I see negative delta as the market is making highs, that's telling me that buyers are not getting what they want, and I'm starting to look for an entry. When we get below that candle, isn't that a 3-bar reversal, Dakota? That's when I'm taking it. If these buyers if this was positive delta and they continued to push, right? If we saw some buying at 2,400, I would be I'd be more reluctant to take the short, because this is telling me that buyers are pushing the price higher. But as this price is pushing up, there's no real convinced buying in this, right? This candle here has more negative delta than these 3 candles have positive delta, right? So in this 12-minute period, sellers are in control.
Perfect.
This would be my short entry somewhere around here. It gives me an area to limit risk, and then going from there.
Great explanation. And it's consistent, right? Where you're doing it over and over again. Same exact thing. It's very repetitive for you. Do you dare say it's boring once you do it so often?
Yeah, and it can keep you out of trades. Like even right now, right? Like this trade here, I'm just reading the flow as it's coming in, right? This last 3-minute candle, there's some convinced selling in that, right? Negative 451 delta in here. Sellers are still very much in control. And can we just see it from the price? Yes. But sometimes candles can deceive you where you don't know if there's actually selling in it. That's why I read volume personally. But yeah, we will go for it's the same thing. a lot of the times I'm not even looking at the candle patterns. I'm looking at this delta below the chart and just reading the volume.
Perfect. That makes
Gold
sense.
is just selling off.
Do you ever look at technical patterns?
I've started to see them now. Paying attention to Topstep TV, hearing you call out, 3-bar reversals and things like that. I'll be honest with you though, I'm a visual person, but I must have failed the technical pattern class in trading. I literally ask traders all the time in Discord, and again, this is a community. We're all helping each other out. Anyone who's been in Discord with me knows that I've asked in my Discord chat, hey guys, is this a head and shoulders, right? Like, is that a confirmed head and shoulders? Because I skipped that class.
Yeah. Same thing. I mean, it's kind of the same for me. And we're coaches. We trade. We have our own ways of trading, and we've been trading for a while. But we're still, students of the markets. And I can't even count how many times that I've asked the chat, just hey guys, what do you guys see on the DOM? Is there any like orders or what is this? Like, oh, there's a big order at this. What does this mean? There's so much that I don't know, and I'm still learning. I'm in the middle of going to be taking my Series 3 as well. And I could really appreciate that, Coach Jay, where we do not know everything there is about the market. I'm still learning. You're still learning. And we can only imagine and assume that everybody in the chat, regardless of where you're at in your career and how much experience you have, you're still learning. And same with Hoag. I absolutely love that with Hoag. He said the same thing. He's still learning as well. And as we're talking, this gold trade is just catching steam to the downside.
That average daily measure, right? We just measured it out, and we might get it while we're still on the call, right? It was 35 points, brought us down to 23.65. I know we're talking about strategy here, and someone also what was that? Who was that commented that? I'm sorry I missed your comment, but I missed your name, but said that the volume analysis is technical, and I agree, right? There's patterns in whatever you do, and like Dakota says all the time, whatever you do, just keep it consistent and do it all the time. I see patterns in volume first that I wouldn't see on a chart, right? I could look at only volume and have a general idea of where the market is going without looking at a chart. So whatever it is that you decide to use, there are patterns in it. You just have to, kind of spend the time to identify exactly what those patterns are.
Perfect. Fair. Yeah, that's interesting. Because when we were talking about 2360, it seemed like a very far.
It was very far away.
It was very far away, and in a minute, like a conversation, we sold off all the way down to 70. Did we touch the 60s? I think we touched 69.
69.4.
Wow. Yeah. So that tells you how quick the markets can move and how quick they could change in an instant. And so, yeah, as I was talking, like if we were into a short, if somebody was into a short and we were looking for that 60 level, it's a realistic expectation to see the market move. Of course, we never will expect the market to move this far, this fast. I mean, especially when we see this sell off in gold the other day, where it took a long time, right? That was a longer, dragged out sell off. Tonight, it's happened almost at a blink of an eye in less than 10, 20 minutes. We've sold off so far, so fast. And if I zoom into a 5-minute chart, yeah, there we go. What is it? 5, 10, 30 minutes, 35 minutes. We've sold off from 400 down 30 points, $30 in gold. Like that is a big move. It's unexpected, but it just goes to show you that, you try and position yourself in a good spot and allow the market to give you as much as possible. And if there is a possibility that the market could give you, say, 2360 in this zone, you're never going to get there if you keep closing your trades out so quick. And I learned that. I've always wondered, and it was one of the first things that I struggled with, was because it just see profit, take profit, see profit, take profit. And there was a place for that. And I always kept doing that. But then man, the market can move. And I've always wanted to catch, when I first started out, I always wanted to catch these bigger moves when the market happens, when it's like, oh, I was long. I was kind of expecting that, but I closed out too soon. I never let my runners run. And as soon as I started, just, maybe take profit on one contract, or take profit on a couple contracts, depending if you're trading micros or minis. And then don't be afraid to just put on a stop loss and just let one run, and then manage it. But there is a place for see profit, take profit. I'm not saying it's bad, but I love to let traders run.
Definitely. Wow. I think this gold trade was the perfect example of Dakota. You're never going to beat the allegations of you control the markets. You were talking about measured moves today. We measured this move out in gold, and then it did kind of exactly what you were talking about. It's kind of crazy.
I wish I moved markets, Coach Jay. I really wish I did. Sometimes it just.
Who do you have on speed dial over there?
Yeah, not anybody. I mean, not enough. My trading's been horrible as of late, but it doesn't mean my analysis has been off. Analysis is one thing, and then trading is a complete different other. I have my live account. It's set up. It's ready to go. I didn't take it. It's just, we were talking a very simple technical analysis, and the power that simplicity has when we're going through stuff like this. Maybe it happens to be when you're just joining me on slow markets, Coach Jay, because that gold trade that we had when you joined, and we was talking about the gold trade from the very beginning, we was short, and that worked out beautifully. So there's something to it. There's something to it. And it doesn't happen all the time. Obviously, trust me, I lose a lot more than I win. But when I do get into some good trades, it has a positive expectancy over the long run.
I think what you just said also, Dakota, is really important. That analysis was very simple. And it can be that simple, right? And sometimes I think traders think you need more than what you already have, and you don't, right? You have a simple way to analyze what's going on the charts, and focus on the execution part of it, right? Because we don't get paid to analyze, we get paid to execute on it. So find whatever makes sense to you, and it's whatever strategy. Dakota's going over his now. We see how simple his strategy has gotten him, how far it's gotten him, right, to that leaderboard. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy complicated, or it can be whatever helps you make sense of the markets, and then we go from there. So
yeah, and not every strategy works 100% of the time. It's always going to have those ups and downs. For me, it's just been, the key has been having that confidence to place that very next trade after a bad session, after a bad loss, after going through a very difficult time, no matter what. So it definitely is, regardless of the strategy, it's having the confidence. It's being able to be consistent, being able to be flexible with the markets, because the markets are changing, right? We were hitting all-time highs, all-time highs, all-time highs. Close your eyes and buy. And now here we are having a 3.5% down day on these massive sell-offs. And then who knows, maybe the next few days it's consolidation, and just sideways and sideways. You just never know. And all we could do is prepare for what the market gives us and try and position ourselves to profit from it. I'm not the best at doing it. Like I said earlier in the session, I'm not the best. I'm just an average trader trying to be consistent and trying to make money in the markets, and hopefully being able to help traders like we talked about.
I hear you. Danielle put another hedge fund in the chat, Crystal Ball Capital. I like that one. If anyone is a member of Crystal Ball Capital, I will send you my email. I'll put my email in the chat. Let's connect, because that's what we really want to partner with.
Yeah, I'll wire you some money to give me these.
Right.
Tell me what the market's going to do tomorrow. That's a whole lot more. If you could just if you knew just a few minutes before time what the market would do, that's worth a whole lot more seconds than any lottery ticket. Yeah, even a couple of seconds. Yeah.
Right. Good stuff. I see we also had a bunch of traders in the chat that caught that gold trade. So really nice trade. Anyone who was in that Hopefully you realize some profits. So really good
Yeah,
stuff.
let's see it. Who in the chat caught that gold short? I'm now curious that you said it. I want to see. Just type it in the chat. I don't want to do a poll. We're coming up to the end of the session. I'm really curious. That would be really cool. Cash
Me from
Cow
Cash
says
Cow.
me. Houdini Hedge Fund. Now, there's quite a bit of people that caught it.
Really
Now,
nice.
maybe even a better question is, who got in short and closed it early? That would be the one. Who
That's the
closed
real
it
question.
at 23.90?
Yeah. Who didn't trust their analysis and cut it short? And if you did, it happens. It's going to happen. It's not going to be the last time it happens. Trust yourself. Trust yourself with whatever you see. Got a lot of me's. A lot of people cut their trades early. It's okay.
Oh. Hey, it's still a trade though. Here's the thing: is you're able to take this trade during the Asian session, during slow markets. There was an opportunity to take advantage of markets moving.
The one other point that I kind of want to go to from that, Dakota, and perfect for the lesson you went over, these measured moves. If you cut the trade quote unquote early, what was the expectation that you had for the outcome of that move, right? Because we measured it, and I put this measure down here, 2365, based on the daily ATR. But if your analysis said that there was only 6 points available in this move, and that's what you took, then you traded what your analysis said. Now,
Yeah.
the question is, if you want to capture more of that move, what can you change in your analysis to set those type of expectations? Because it wasn't an unreasonable expectation, but how did you read the charts, and what did your analysis tell you was possible in that trade?
There you go. Well said. Just because you might not have captured the whole move does not mean that you should have held that longer. If you had an analysis like we did when we first traded it, well, yeah, I would have taken profit. I would have been the one that would have closed some out at, say, 90s, maybe close some out at 80, 89. I think I was even saying 89. So yeah, I definitely was going to be one of those guys that closed some of the profit, but maybe been able to hold one and caught a bigger piece of the move. But just because you didn't catch the entire move does not mean that the trade was not a good one.
100%.
But coming up on the last 5-6 minutes, any more questions, any thoughts, Coach Jay? I'll elaborate more on the technical patterns tomorrow. We have Coach Jay. Let's go ahead and get to some questions tomorrow. Come join me tomorrow, 7 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. Central. I'll start going over the technical patterns. Tomorrow's going to be technical pattern day, the last day. I'm going to talk about the technical patterns I look at, and what triggers me in and triggers me out. Other than that, what confirmation do you use to enter a trade? I'm going to be going through that tomorrow as well. If your daily bias is bearish and your hourly bias is bullish, will you be looking for a long or a short? That's a good question.
It's a great question.
What's your thoughts, Coach Jay? If you and maybe today kind of played out, right, where you had a daily bias of bearish, but then I know that's how I was. I'm like, okay, we're bearish. If we cross this, we could start selling off. But then on a smaller time frame, I was looking for long scalps, and that kind of just bit me in the butt.
Yeah. I think we should probably default to the higher time frame bias first, right? So we had the daily, and then the way I would read that is, if my daily is bearish and my hourly is bullish, then that means the move that I'm seeing is a counter trend move in that higher time frame, right? So I'm going to adjust what the profit targets are for that trade, and then maybe look for where that hourly chart is starting to top out, right? Because then that lines up with the higher time frame daily bias. So default to what the daily says. The shorter time frame is going to tell you, well, what you're going to see it turn in the shorter time frames first. That shorter time frame is going to give you those counter trend moves and the opportunity to get in that higher time frame. What would you say to that, Dakota?
Yeah, it's hard. It depends. So I'm going to say the same thing. It depends.
It depends. Yep.
follow your strategy. That's all I have to say. Just whatever it is, be consistent. Yeah, like you said, usually most of the time the higher time frame prevails. If you're bearish on the daily, then maybe you should only stick to shorts, right? Unless something changes during the day, because markets change, as like you say, then yeah, there you could say I was bearish daily, but then something does change throughout the day that you can now be bullish on a different time frame. Then sure, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Just as long as you're following your plan and you can be consistent, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I know it's difficult when you have a bias on one time frame and then you have a different bias on another time frame, because some of my best trades, my bias is correlated between different time frames, and that makes me feel a lot more confident. So it really is up to the individual trader. So
I definitely agree with that. I know one way Coach Paul uses or sets his bias for the day is on a 30-minute chart. He uses the 200 moving average. If the market is below the 200 moving average, he's only looking to sell. Right now, if it's in the hole, does he sell it? No, because trade location matters. But that's how he sets his daily bias. So again, what makes sense to you as a trader, and then go from there.
Yeah, I know some traders who don't care about what the daily charts say or they're daily biased. Sometimes they just
Coach Robert.
Yeah, there you go. It's way different. There's so many different styles of trading that I would say, it doesn't really matter to some people. And so that's why it's so hard to give a solid answer outside of it depends and be very general with it, because it's so personalized to yourself.
Yep. 100%. I know Dakota doesn't do it, but it's Wednesday. I'm here. If you guys can go ahead and hit that like button. I feel so weird doing that, but yeah, hit that like button if you can. Thumbs up if anything we talked about today helped you in your trading, or you just like us, right? Look at that great haircut we got over here. We told some jokes, we had some laughs, some good times, and talk trading, right? Which we all love to do. So that's all I got to say.
All right, guys. I'll catch you later. I will see you Friday morning, Coach Jay, and I'll see everybody else tomorrow night. Take care.